things that you're liable to read in the Bible ain't necessary.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Atheist Experience. I'm your host this week, Matt Dillahunty, filling in for Russell Glasser, and joining me is Don Baker.
Hello,
How you
good
doing?
to be here.
This is a live call-in show, and we'll have the number up for you soon. Today's November 6th, so if you're actually watching it November 6th live, you'll be able to call in and as soon as we put the number up. We're sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We have weekly meetings, and those weekly meetings are going to be moving beginning next Sunday to Romeo's on Barton Springs Road. And that's at 11:30 every Sunday, except for the third Sunday of the month when we host a lecture series at the Austin History Center, which is located at the corner of 9th and Guadalupe. The next lecture will be November 20th, and we'll have Renee Hellman from the American Atheists. The lecture begins at 12:30. Any atheist or atheist-friendly people are more than welcome to attend. Also, on the second Sunday of the month, we have board meetings, which are they remaining at Schlotsky's? Or are we moving them to Romeo's as well?
Watch your email for an announcement.
Yeah, we may be moving those as well. Next Sunday is the 13th, and we'll be having a board meeting. All ACA members are welcome to attend, but only board members can vote. In addition to this program, the ACA also sponsors a bi-weekly internet audio show called The Nonprofits. It's Saturdays at 1 Eastern, 2 Central. It's on every Saturday at freethoughtradio.com. It's live every other Saturday. We had a show yesterday. The next show will be on November 19th. It's hosted by Jeff D., Dennis Lubay, and also includes Russell Glasser and myself. It's a slightly different show than this, and you can visit nonprofitsradio.com to download audio from previous shows and check it out. In addition, we have a number of social events throughout the week. On Mondays, we have Godless Gamers at the home of Russell Glasser. You can visit the website, www.atheist-community.org, or email tv@atheist-community.org to get more information on how to attend. On Thursdays, we host Atheist Happy Hour at Antonio's Tex-Mex, which begins at 7:30 and is on the southbound feeder road of I-35 just south of 183. All of those events are open to any atheist or atheist-friendly people. You do not have to be a member to attend, but if you're and after the program today, we'll be going to Fresh Choice, which is located on Great Hills Trail near the Arboretum. We normally get done with the show at 6, but we'll be there somewhere between 6:30 and 6:45. Again, any atheist or atheist-friendly people are welcome to attend. If you're coming down to preach, proselytize, or provoke, don't bother. Just go ahead and call into the show when we put the number up, and you can tell me how I'm wrong and you're right. And that's what the show's for, to allow us to communicate with people who agree or disagree. We're all in favor of discussing all kinds of options. And that's the last, I think, of the official announcements. Mm-hmm. Although there may be a new announcement coming soon with regard to roller skating. So if you like wheels on your feet, stay tuned, and we might have some news for you. But
that sounds dangerous.
It can be. I fell last time, but
yeah,
not very badly.
Okay. Well, today we have a rotating co-host format, and the co-host brings in a topic, and seems like today is a good time to talk about this constitutional amendment that's on the slate for the November 8th elections concerning same-sex marriage in Texas. And so I wanted to do a show today on same-sex marriage and take a look at it from an atheist perspective and take a look at it from a rational perspective. Let's see. The amendment reads, the Constitution... the constitutional amendment providing that marriage in this state consists only of the union of one man and one woman, and prohibiting this state or a political subdivision of this state from creating or recognizing any legal status identical or similar to marriage. Okay, so that's what we're talking about as far as the amendment goes, but we're going to talk about the greater issue of same-sex marriage. And just to start things off, there's the Pew survey has done a couple of different polls on same-sex marriage, and as it turns out, attitudes are changing. Let's see, in this year, 36% of the people favor the rights of gays to marry, and which is up from 30% in 2003. So just in a few years, that's improved. And those opposed to it are now 56%, down from 62% in 2003. So attitudes are changing, and more information, I think, is part of that. But unfortunately, if you read from your media, you read the newspaper or watch the TV, there's a lot of misinformation about this. A lot of the arguments are very emotional, like there's issues of family and oh, this is going to spread AIDS and destroy civilization and end the world as we know it, that sort of thing. Or you hear non sequiturs like, I have to obey God's laws, so I'm going to inflict them on you.
Yeah, but isn't God's law specifically for Christians that if they discover two men engaging in sex, that they're supposed to kill them?
Yeah, I believe so.
There's nothing about just, if you find a couple of guys having sex, don't let them get married. You're supposed to kill them. So, but lesbians are okay.
Lesbians are okay. Yeah, lesbians are more or less ignored by the Bible as far as...
Ruth was a lesbian.
Oh, okay.
That's one interpretation.
One interpretation, okay. Well, have you also noticed how when you ask questions about religion and God, they more or less tell you, well, you can't possibly understand the mind of God, so quit asking. But then they turn around and say, well, we understand God's mind quite well, and we're going to inflict our interpretation on, yeah. Anyway, so there's that. There's this deception of there's people legislating from the bench, and ours, our nation is at stake. Well, it turns out that the people legislating from the bench are the ones interpreting the Constitution, and if you don't like the Constitution, then maybe this country's not for you. I don't know, or maybe you should amend it. And I'm talking about the U.S. Constitution here, not the Texas one. So one of the distinctions that is almost always screwed up in the media is this distinction between religious marriage and civil marriage. Those are two different animals. The state has this notion of a marriage contract that people can enter into, and this has nothing to do with religion at all. And this is what this amendment's about. It's about the state and its handling of marriage contracts with people who live in that state. So that's what this amendment's about. But if you read the media and you watch TV or whatever, you're going to be led to believe that this is a religious issue, right? That the loudest voices are about coming from the religious, or those who are religious. So for example, this same-sex marriage issue has nothing to do with anybody's religious freedoms, right? Because nobody, if you don't want to have a gay marriage, don't have one. You're not being forced to have one. If you don't want to attend a gay marriage, don't attend one. If you don't want to have them in your church, don't have them in your church. No one's trying to change that. So basically, nobody's religious freedoms are being trampled on here, as far as allowing same-sex marriage, right?
It's not their religious freedoms that they're worried about being trampled on. It's they want to be able to inject their opinion on everybody else regardless.
Right.
And that's what this would stop. I think that it's wrong for homosexuals to be married, and therefore all of you have to think it too. Sorry,
right.
You're wrong.
And it's very unusual for theists who are interviewed in this sort of situation to draw this distinction, to say, well, this amendment is about one thing, but I'm going to talk about another. No, they freely mix those things up, right? So they more or less want to manipulate people. They want to tell people how to vote. And they're happy to.
They feel an obligation, because from the pulpit a lot of times there's this concept that's in addition to this being a Christian nation and founded on Christian principles, that there's a concept from the pulpit in some occasions, and it was this way when I was growing up as well, that even if this wasn't a Christian nation, it's every Christian's duty to make it a Christian nation, which means, yeah, we can be all in favor of religious freedom, but in reality, the whole purpose is to make sure that this is 100% a Christian nation. And if we can do it, if we as Christians can make sure that we enforce those religious opinions, God will bless us.
Yep. There's definitely that attitude out there. Definitely that attitude. And what you also hear a lot is, we're going to try to protect the sanctity of marriage. Well, marriage, being sanctified, this is not the job of the state, right? Sanctification is a religious concept, right? If you want the state in the business of sanctifying marriages, then maybe the religion shouldn't be in the business of sanctifying marriage because they're going to do it wrong, right? So you don't you don't really want the state to be in the business of sanctifying marriage, and we certainly don't want certain religious groups to be dictating how the state does things, right? So anyway, lots of confusion on that. So what this is really about is it's about contracts, right? Secular marriage is a contract with the state, and so there's this issue of, are we going to disallow certain people from entering contracts and effectively relegating them to second-class citizenship? In this state, this amendment is actually not even a Jim Crow. We're going to allow the second-class marriage of civil unions. We're not even going to allow that. That's not even what this amendment's about. We're not even going to even allow that on the plate, right? So Jim Crow would be a step forward from what this amendment's about. There's this shrill argument that gays are destroying marriage, and that's just simply not true. We have, one could argue that religious conservatives are destroying marriage. Let me pull up a little thing here from Andrew Sullivan, November 28th, 2004. The Bible Belt divorce rate is roughly 50% higher than the national average. Let's see. A staggering 23% of married born-agains have been divorced twice or more. Teenage births are up. So there's a lot of there's a lot of problems here. The gays are sort of being blamed here for problems caused by others. So these are some of the sort of deceptive emotional things that are being thrown out. So let's take a look at some of the benefits of marriage. Okay, I'm going to quote from an article which is a rather interesting article. Let me back up a second here. There is a group called the Marriage Alliance who is promoting this amendment. It's a Texas group. It's www.txmarriage.com. The group against this amendment is called No Nonsense in November, led by Glenn Maxey. So those are the main groups fighting for and against this. From the Marriage Alliance, which is the ones that are for this amendment, they have a lot of non sequiturs and things on their website, but they have an article on their website from the Honorable Rick Santorum, from the Heritage Foundation, his a publication called the Heritage Lectures. He argues, I agree with a lot of what he says, but a lot of what he says is also very, very creepy too. So some of the things I agree with, marriage is for the common good. It benefits children. Let's see, children living in two-parent homes are better off than those in single-parent families. They're 44% more likely to be physically abused, 47% less likely to suffer physical neglect, 43% less likely to suffer an emotional neglect, 55% less likely to suffer some form of child abuse. They're less likely to have emotional and behavioral problems. Now, to his credit, Mr. Santorum claims that all these benefits for marriage, but they're also true of any couples raising children. Nothing in this article is really about marriage as far as children's concerned. Benefits for women: wives are more likely. Are 30% more likely to rate their health excellent or good than single women of the same age, which is very interesting. So they're not necessarily healthier, but they think they're healthier. Domestic violence rates are lower for married women. Single men have much less chance of being incarcerated, or much less likely to be incarcerated. I know that men live longer when they're married. So all of these wonderful benefits about marriage, and then at the end of his article, he has this non sequitur that that we have to defend marriage against the threats from cultural breakdown, and that's his only argument against same-sex marriage. And it's the last sentence or two of the whole article. So I agree with him that marriage is a good thing, and it's good for our society. And why not allow same-sex people to marry? Why should they not have these benefits, and why should their children not have these benefits? So let's see. So then we get into this whole procreation issue, right? Well, guess what? A lot of gay people are parents, and a lot of gay people are natural parents to their children. About 10% of gay people have children, either through a heterosexual marriage or whatever. A lot of gay people are raising children. So, and there's no evidence that gays make worse parents. So that it's been studied that same-sex parents are basically equivalent to opposite-sex parents as far as raising children. That the children turn out fine. So, this amendment, while claiming to be pro-family, is really against the families of people who are gay. And so this whole pro-family thing is just a bogus argument in my and if you want to promote procreation, why not have an amendment that requires people to have kids? Make them have a quota or something.
Yeah, that's something that I noticed as well going through listening to some of the various arguments that you encounter about this is, well, gay marriage might diminish this or might diminish that. It's a lot of mights and maybes, and it's just
show us some evidence here.
Yeah, it's guessing based on a bias, and the fact of the matter is that marriage is a contract between two people, and there's not necessarily anything in there with regard to procreation, with regard to sex, with regard to family. It's essentially a contract, and the church happens to sanction. In some cases, if marriage was about a family, then once your children are raised and out of the home, then your marriage should be dissolved. And if marriage is about procreation, then when women reach menopause, we're divorced.
Or you shouldn't allow older people to get married. Or
what it's about is two people being willing to commit to each other, and just to the point of signing a contract, to say that we love each other and want to be
responsibilities, right,
and get all the benefits. And it seems to me that the arguments against it have no rational basis. They come from a bias, a prejudice. I haven't heard anything that has proven to be sound that would be considered a secular argument against gay marriage at all. Mm-hmm. So if you've got one, we welcome your calls. We're going to take callers in about 10 minutes or so. If our folks behind the scenes want to put up the number, that'd be great. So we've talked about the benefits of marriage. Procreation is not in danger. We have 6.45 billion people as of June 2005. I actually had to update that. I used to be saying that we had 6.3 billion people in the world. But that changed. We're expected to have 9 billion people by 2050. So, this is not going to extinguish the human race, I promise. You can hold me to that. Okay, so another argument we have is we're going to destroy our traditions of marriage. Tradition is good, and I claim this is a pretty weak argument. This notion that we did something in the past and therefore it's good is a bad argument. In the past we've had slavery, and that was a bad thing, and we got rid of it. So that's blows that one. We used to not allow interracial marriage, and only in 62 or so 65, I think, 67 did we start allowing interracial marriage in this country by a constitutional ruling. Traditionally, women were property, right? Women were basically the property of their fathers, and when it became time to marry, they became the property of their husbands, and that was traditional marriage. And women had very little say in that. The church didn't. And it was a big
changed tradition then to have two people decide on their own based on love or their own interests to marry. It used to be that all the marriages were financial arrangements and not anything about love. It used to be that wives couldn't own property. That's much more recent. So we're moving towards sort of an equality of the two partners. And I've read a book that argues that same-sex marriage is just a logical extension of that. That it is the epitome of equality in a marriage.
Let me jump in with
Sure.
one amusing fact, because I have a really, as a former Christian, I have a hard time going through a show without pissing off somebody who's a Christian. You talked about marriage being largely a financial thing, and this concept of a dowry comes up. Mm-hmm. And, this was a bride price that people paid. And I just wanted to remind everybody of the very amusing dowry that King David was required to collect in order to marry his wife. And he was ordered to collect 100 foreskins from the neighboring tribes. But King David, who was God's favorite and a colossal overachiever, brought back 200 foreskins.
All right.
She must have been hot.
Right. Well, if you want to go back to biblical traditions, there are lots of people in the Bible who had multiple wives.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I don't know how many foreskins were required.
Is that the tradition that we're shooting for? The church didn't recognize, the Christian church didn't recognize marriage as sacred until 1215. So that's more than half of the lifetime of the church where they more or less ignored marriage. And so is that the tradition we're talking about? So later, from what I understand, the Catholic Church actually had same-sex commitment ceremonies. Is that the tradition we're talking about? So usually when people bring up this tradition argument, they're picking some point in the past that they like, or some past past fantasy that they think existed in the past, and say we want that again.
Well, they do it all the time. I mean, if you look at Christmas, Christians are every year complaining about how atheists are trying to take Christ out of Christmas. Well, Christmas was a
back to the
pagan
Saturnalia or something, right? Yeah.
It's a pagan tradition that Christianity stole.
That's right.
And the constant claims that this nation is a Christian nation founded on Christian principles. No, it wasn't. This kind of revisionist history of I've always been taught this, or this is what I think, and people don't ever check any facts. If you hear it from your parents and you hear it from the pulpit, must be true. Wrong. Right.
So I think what the real issue here is who should decide who should be allowed to marry? Who should make the decision? And that seems to be a theme here, I think, when we talk about things on this show. Is like, who should decide whether they have children? Who should decide whether their kid is going to pray in school? These sorts of things. Who should make these decisions?
I volunteer for all those jobs.
Okay.
I will be the decision maker.
Yeah. Okay. You probably do a better job than some of the others. But with this issue does the state have the power? Does Pat Robertson need to tell you who you can marry? Is it Christian Taliban? Is the state going to decide based on the whims of these religious people who you're going to marry? So I think that what we have here is this amendment, and a lot of this stuff is really Christian persecution of non-Christians. This is foisting the Christian mindset or beliefs or whatever on people who may not be Christians, and it's not their decision. If people want to make decisions on their own based on Christian beliefs, that's just fine. We have religious freedom in the United States, but having someone else's beliefs foisted on you is not good. I'm going to return again now to this Rick Santorum article, and it took me a while to figure this out, but he ends up spending about a page of a 3-page article railing about this horrible thing called the right to privacy, and how this is not supported by the Constitution because it's not an enumerated right, and this is this horrible thing. And it's a very interesting little argument he's making. He first says that marriage is a selfless act. It's the act of giving oneself to somebody else and becoming one, which I agree with. It's a beautiful commitment to another person. And then he says, you don't have a right to privacy, so the state has a right to control marriage, right? So then so unfortunately what's happened is in this argument he's actually started to say, well, since the state has the right to control marriage, then it's no longer a selfless act anymore. It's coerced, or it's messed up. So it's the same argument of patriotism is good. So let's force people to say the Pledge of Allegiance in school, and make them patriotic. So it's no longer somebody that somebody wants to do. It's somebody that's coerced. Faith is good, so let's make them pray in school. So it's no longer faith based on one's own personal beliefs anymore. Democracy is good, so let's take out foreign dictators. So it's the same sort of thinking of let's harness this good and screw it up in the process. So this is a rather creepy argument, if it's not clear, that basically you have no right to privacy, and the state has the right to control your marriage, and that's what he's arguing. And this is actually one of the more coherent arguments I've seen for state control of marriage. It's a very creepy argument. So I'd like to also point out that if you ban same-sex marriage, you're actually interfering with the religious beliefs of a lot of different groups. There are Jewish groups, there are Christian sects that allow same-sex marriage, and so what you're doing is you're saying religious persecution is perfectly okay. You can persecute against those groups and decide against those groups. Even though you want to be you claim persecution of your own beliefs, I guess. Anyway, so I guess I want to make the point here that the state religion won't be your religion, right? So if the state is deciding what your religious beliefs are, they won't be your religious beliefs anymore. We see that already in the Ten Commandments monument. We got slavery whitewashed. We got wives as property. The monument on the state grounds is at odds with the Catholic version of the Ten Commandments. It's at odds with the the Jewish version of the monument, or of the Ten Commandments. So you already see that happening. The state religion is not your religion. So. In a little bit, we'll take some calls. I'm going to do one more little thing here. This particular amendment, we actually see the majority voting on the rights of a minority, which is just simply wrong. This is not how democracy works. Democracy is not about what two foxes and a sheep want to have for dinner. What we do have in this country is a constitutional republic, where the rights of the minorities are protected by the Constitution, and so this whole thing is very anti-American in my opinion. There's this claim that gays supposedly already have marriage rights if they just choose the right partner. Everything's just fine, but the Supreme Court in 1967 decided, based on the 14th Amendment of equal protection under the law, that you can marry outside your race, and that is protected. So why is this any different? You should be able to choose your partner is the issue. Sadly, in 2000, Alabama decided to finally rescind this same-sex or this interracial marriage ban off their books. Right. So it's been unconstitutional at the national level since '67. But at the state level, they finally had an election in 2000, and only 40% of the people in Alabama wanted, or 40% of the people wanted to keep the interracial marriage ban. So this is very telling for how whether rights should be voted on by a minority or by the majority of the people. Right? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. A little bit muddled. How about we hold Christians to a decision as to whatever the majority of gays decide? Wouldn't that be fun? I'd like to see that. And then there's a couple articles in the paper recently that, gays are selfish for wanting their constitutional rights. Isn't that pathetic?
Those bastards.
Okay, so
how unfair is that?
So we can't have voting on the rights of a minority. That's just not American. The amendment's poorly written. Apparently, there's this controversy what similar or identical to marriage means. It's very, very vague. There's this problem that does it really ban all of marriage?
Yeah, there's a wording problem.
There's a wording problem. I guess those intellectual elite didn't help out with writing this. This whole sentence didn't quite add up.
It appears that they may have left out the word "else," saying that it would be illegal to create a definition of marriage which was anything other than what we've described. Right. And by excluding that, they may have said marriage is the union of man and woman. Where is the text?
It's right here.
The constitutional amendment providing that marriage in this state consists only of the union of one man and one woman, and prohibiting this state or public subdivision of this state from creating or recognizing any legal status identical to or similar to marriage. So it's basically saying marriage is a man and a woman getting married, and we cannot allow anything that is similar or identical to that, which would include that. So right. soon as they pass this, right. You may actually, or if this passes, you may actually see a legal battle on whether or not marriage is now constitutional in Texas.
Right.
Because
common law marriage is very much in a gray area as far as this is concerned, right? So why amend the Constitution saying something that doesn't make sense or that people have to spin one way or the other? It's like throwing some garbage in there that you can interpret later the way you want to. That's or have endless court battles, by the way, at taxpayer expense, which is coming out of your pocket, to decide these issues. And I predict that there will be court battles about this, and that the religious right will cry about, oh, we're being so persecuted that the people are legislating from the bench, and oh, it's horrible, and it's all because they couldn't craft a sentence that it was coherent. And it's their own damn fault.
This concept of legislating from the bench is pretty crappy anyway.
Yeah.
Because historically, it's been legislating from the bench, which has forced selfish, greedy people to stop doing bad things. Like, keeping other people as property comes to mind. This
interracial marriage was exactly that. Right?
It's hard to take away something that somebody's really enjoying, no matter how wrong it may be, and to imply that if we can't get the votes for it and we then legislate the right thing, that we're somehow being bad and activist. No, sorry,
It's just a smokescreen.
If I have to get a judge to tell you to stop hitting me over the head with a stick, it's still the right thing to do. Just because you don't want to vote for it.
Yep. So we'll take some calls in a second. So it's poorly written. Yeah, it's punitive towards gays. It's very clearly, what does it mean to have something similar or identical to marriage? If you will something to somebody else, is that similar or identical to marriage? Well, if you will something to your partner, isn't that similar to a marriage benefit? Or powers of attorney, are those similar to a marriage benefit? What about death benefits? Are those similar to a marriage benefit? So it's very vague and punitive. It will potentially sabotage domestic partner benefits that have been given by companies to gay people who work for them. And this has actually happened in Ohio. There's actually a court battle going on about this very issue, that potentially the state is interfering with that. And discrimination is not good for our economy. You might dislike gays, but gay people are productive members of society, and they you want to have the best people you can working in our economy. So I'm going to stop here. I'll pick up again in a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit later about what I think is going on and why there's such a smokescreen, why there's so much misinformation and all that, and who's behind it. So that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit later. But we'll take a few calls now. We're a live call-in show. This is November 6th.
Yeah.
And if you don't see our number on your screen right now, you're probably watching a rerun, and don't try to call.
Right. If there's not a number up, we're not live.
But if there is a number, which is today,
you can
give us a call. Tell me why I'm wrong. We have this little sign up here, skepticism is a virtue. We would love you to call in and tell us why we're wrong. And maybe we'll change our opinions. Maybe we'll learn something. Stranger things will happen.
Let's start with Tom on line 1. How you doing, Tom?
Good. How you guys doing?
Pretty good.
Yeah, I wish I could give you a salient argument against this, but yeah, it's kind of crazy. Anyway, I'm the kind of guy, I like to write letters to the editor, but I never send them in.
Well, you should.
I just don't do it. So I'm going to read it to you.
It's just a 37-cent stamp, man.
I know.
Send them an email.
Yeah, I just don't. Anyway, I'm going to read it to you, and
is it short?
it's very short.
Okay.
Go for it.
Okay. I agree with people who say that states should not issue gays marriage licenses for religious reasons. I also believe that the government should not issue homosexual marriages license for religious reasons. Instead of adding another amendment to the Texas Constitution, let's just enforce the Second Amendment of the National Constitution and get the states out of the religion business. Stop issuing marriage licenses altogether, and maybe instead issue everyone domestic partner licenses and let the churches do the marrying.
That's just fine.
Yeah, there's been a lot of things, there's some people who want to do with the government's involvement in marriage completely, and then there are some people who simply want to change what it's called. Let's not have the government involved in marriage, but the government can establish domestic partnerships. And while I understand it on some level,
civil union,
civil unions on some level, though, a rose is a rose is a rose. And what is the purpose of jumping through hoops and changing the way things are structured in order to give a couple every right that they would currently have under the word marriage? Aren't we really just changing the name?
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of debate, a lot of tug of war over the word marriage itself. Who owns that word, right? And we're talking about civil marriage mostly on this show, right? Because we're talking about the state and church-state separation. So we're very much for church-state separation. It's part of our group's charter, if you will. So we agree with you that and it really doesn't matter what people call it, right? As long as everybody's clear what it means.
Well, except that they seem to put a lot of emphasis on the wording, on the word marriage as being some kind of sanctified thing that domestic partners isn't. Domestic partners is a contract between two people.
Confusing the
whereas
issue.
According to religious people, the word marriage is something that's seen through the eyes of God. And therefore, if you have the state not issuing licenses that have religious meaning to them, instead just a contract between two people,
right?
Then it actually they might just shut up. They go.
But in reality, that's what's happening.
Marriage altogether. Let's just keep our mouths shut about this whole.
I don't know that they can always hear the mic. In reality, though, that's essentially what's happening. When you want to get married, can a church marry you without the involvement of the state at all? No. You have to go and actually apply for a license and register and take tests and fill all this out. And the whole purpose is to get a state-sanctioned marriage certificate. I don't have to go to a church at all either. I can now today completely be married without ever having any involvement with the church at all. While it might be nice to, in some political schemes, to get the state out of the marriage business, what's in reality happening is that the church has glommed onto the marriage business as a way of, well, my marriage license is supplied by the state. All of the legal issues surrounding marriage are completely adjudicated by the state. The church has no bearing on this at all. I don't have to go near a church to get married. I can do it at the courthouse. So exactly what involvement, if any, does the church have in marriage at all, other than saying these broad claims that marriage is a union seen through the eye of God? That's a bunch of crap. They're glomming on
within their religion, but that's not true of the state marriage. Right?
Yeah. They're of the two, religious marriage and civil marriage, which is more important, which has the most impact in reality, and it's civil marriage. Now, to you personally, religious marriage may be the more important because, for you to believe that your God sees your marriage and graces and blesses your union or whatever, that may be more important to you. But in the scope of reality and interpersonal relationships with others, civil marriage is the one that's the most important, and it's completely irrelevant what the church happens to do or claim with regard to it. And while we can't tell anybody how to vote on any given issue, I would encourage everybody to vote, regardless of which side of the issue you fall on.
Actually, we can take a stand on issues.
We can take a stand on the issue, just not tell somebody, you need to vote this way.
We have restrictions on this show. That we can't call people to action.
What I can do is tell you exactly how the KKK is going to vote.
How are they going to vote?
Now, how you interpret that is completely up to you, but I know what I'm thinking.
Right, and the 3,000 people that went out there are just doing what the KKK wanted them to do.
Yeah, they're going for attention.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit last night. We drove to San Antonio for dinner, and I had a conversation with a friend of mine about whether or not it might have been better to just completely ignore them.
Of course it would be. That's the best thing to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think that may be the case, but not always. And one of the points that I brought up last night is that if I see something that's wrong, I have some kind of obligation that I ascribe to myself to say something about it.
Right, but 10 people motivated 3,000 people.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, you just played into their. If you went there, you just played into their little game. Now, but a word is a very powerful thing, and if you were to take the word marriage and say, okay, well, if you want to take people's rights away from them to get married, then what we will do is just issue licenses that are domestic partners. And I know it's just a word is a word, a rose is a rose, but it's not really.
Yeah.
Because then you're like, then they would just freak out, like, no, you could not do that. You can't, that's my thinking anyway. Y'all have a good evening.
All right.
Thanks a lot for calling.
Thank you for calling.
I see the point, and I kind of agree with it. I mean, I just can't get out beyond this thing that it's kind of, jumping through hoops. And wouldn't it be much better to say, okay, instead of saying let's get the state completely out of marriage and establish the exact same institution with regard to the state under a different name,
civil unions.
Yeah, civil unions, domestic partners, whatever.
Well,
why not just let the state take? Well, okay, there is a difference between domestic partner and civil union.
Yeah,
that was a mistake on my part. But why not just let the state take back the meaning of marriage?
Right.
Or separate it completely. Because what claim does the church actually have to marriage? I mean,
they certainly want to own it. That's for sure.
They have, I'm an atheist. If I go get married, the church got no say over my marriage.
Right. They certainly don't belong in the atheists or Buddhists or a whole bunch of other folks' marriages. Right.
I can pick a girl, because that's all we can do right now, and go down to the courthouse and be married and have all of the legal benefits,
rights and responsibilities.
Yeah,
right. Raise children,
and it doesn't matter what color that girl is or anything else. And so why should it matter that I chose a girl? If you're willing to make a commitment to somebody for life, I'm looking for somebody to say, no, there is a really good reason why this is wrong. A reason that doesn't stem from a religious belief. Because while I understand that your religion may say this is wrong, and I recognize that you have the right to that opinion, and I support you having the right to that opinion, I don't support you having the right to try and legislate your opinion on everybody else.
That's right. That's absolutely right. People can make up their own minds based on their own religious convictions, and that's not being trampled on in any respect. Yeah, there's let's see, a letter. I'll read a little letter to the editor that we had to the Statesman a couple days ago, November 1st. Maybe we can pick apart some of the logic in this, which is entertaining. The letter is titled "Obey God's Will, Laws." The Bible teaches us that we should obey the laws of our country unless they disagree with God's will and laws. Thus, our country's laws should agree with God's will. Okay, non sequitur there already. Did you catch it?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out why there's a date on sour cream right now.
Okay, so if you believe in the Bible, you have to force your will on others, is the gist of it. Let's see. In Romans, usually...
I'll look it up. I got a Bible here.
Okay, in Romans 1:21-27, the Bible says that some people turn away from God. They do not glorify Him or give thanks to Him, and their foolish hearts lead them to lustful acts. It calls homosexual behavior indecent acts. It is clear that God considers homosexual behavior sinful. I have to consider God sinful, personally. Our society has become very permissive. People are concerned about their rights, but forget about the responsibilities to God and their fellow man. What about people who don't believe in the Bible?
That's irrelevant.
That's irrelevant.
Doesn't matter.
Okay, then it goes on to say, God has given us free will. God has granted us forgiveness if we believe in Jesus as our Savior and ask for forgiveness and repent. Of course, if you choose the wrong thing, you get tortured forever, so forget that free will thing. Gays are committing sinful acts and are not repenting of their sins. Christians should not persecute gays. Christians should encourage gays to repent. So the Christian nation thing. Christians should never say homosexual behavior is acceptable. All Christians should vote yes on Proposition 2. So,
I'm wondering though, if they're one of their problems is that gays just aren't repenting of this sin. If there's a Catholic who happens to be an alcoholic and he goes into confession once a week and says, "Forgive me, Father, for I'm a drunk," couldn't you go into confession every week and say, "Forgive me, I had sex with another man"? And now they're repenting, which means you have no more complaint with it.
Right.
What's the problem?
Didn't the Catholic priests all repent to each other with the pedophiles?
Well,
and clear each other's sins and
forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. Me too. How was it?
Yeah. Must be okay then, I guess, if they do that. Anyway, that's pretty amusing. Okay, so we don't have a lot of callers right now, so maybe I'll push on, or you wanna take on this little bit of news?
No,
here?
keep going.
Keep going. Okay.
I'll save this because this is going to irritate some people, I'm sure.
Okay.
I'm going to pick on the Vatican.
Okay. Well, what's really going on here is that we have this is a Christian thing. This is Christian legislatures who are elected by Christians. Forcing this on the state. It was signed symbolically in a church. So this is all about Christians persecuting gays. At the heart of this is good old Warren Chisholm, who is famous in my mind for outlawing dildos in Texas and all that. He's a piece of work. He's from Pampa, which is up in north Texas. So he and his pals are part of the religious right, and they are trying very hard to prevent states from allowing same-sex marriage, and then having this whole thing providing a mechanism by which people can get married in some state and then go back home and claim that they deserve their marriage rights, because the Constitution actually provides for that, even though they've tried to get rid of it via this DOMA, this Defense of Marriage Act. They're trying. That's unconstitutional, and that'll get struck down. So they're trying very hard to prevent gays from getting married, and one of the things they're doing is they've effectively created an enemy in gays, and they are trying to stir up a lot of fear about gays. They are doing things like blaming gays for the divorce rates, which is not the case, right? If Christians are responsible for their own divorce rates. They blame gays for the priest scandal, right? They blame gays for teen pregnancy. It's like all these social ills are because of the gays. Go get them.
I don't know a single teen pregnancy.
Yeah, I've actually heard that.
Wow.
This sexual promiscuity is. It's like all these leaps, but the theme.
Well, you know, some people have been challenging like the theory of evolution, and we often try to demonstrate that the theory of gravity is also a theory in much the same way, and so is the theory of sexual reproduction. So maybe they're using
is that a
this.
theory? I thought that was.
Oh no, it's all theory. It's science. It's a theory. A theory can be a fact, boys and girls.
Really?
Maybe they're challenging the theory of sexual reproduction and saying that, you know, these gay men, just by existing, are causing our young girls to get knocked up. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but it might be your moronic, abstinence-only, hands-off approach to not preparing your kids for the reality with regard to sex.
Yeah.
I think that's probably more responsible. I'll place a bet on that. And all we need to do is drive to Lubbock.
Oh yeah, yeah. We have some lots of fear mongering. I lived in Houston in the mid '80s when there was a group there called the Straight Slate, and they were a very interesting deal.
Straight Slate.
Briefly, what happened was the city council decided to add some rights to gay partners in the city charter or something. So this affected only city employees, and the religious right, their religious groups got all up in arms about it and actually got it on the ballot within the city to repeal this. And out of that became this pro heterosexual group called the Straight Slate, which then went on to
That's good.
Anyway, they have this wonderful ad here. Are you going to vote pro homosexual? So that was part of their ad. Is anyway, they always get patriotism in there. Houston's pro homosexual mayor. Then they have a page on AIDS and how you're going to promote AIDS if you don't vote for the Straight Slate. So that's fear.
You know, I could almost see another copy of this magazine about 100 years, 150 years older that was like, are you going to vote pro-black?
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, so some of the people involved in this party are actually very, very much involved in Houston politics now, and they're going to promote traditional family values. One of them is her only claim to fame was she was a grandmother, right? So she procreated, so she must be good. So.
Not only was she good for procreating, but evidently so did her children.
Yeah, yeah. So she taught them well.
God bless them.
God bless them. Okay, so we have all this fear mongering, and what it is, the reason for the fear mongering is it makes you more powerful to have an enemy, right? That's the whole reason why we have,
God.
Well, no, that too. We have this in our nation. We have the commie scare of the 50s and all that, right? Is all to create fear against the communists, so to rally everybody together. It makes you more powerful. Right now, we have the war on terror. A lot of it is smokescreen to keep people afraid. And so, if you have an enemy and you can stir up fear about this enemy, then that helps you be more powerful. And that's exactly what the religious right is doing with gays. And the most horrible thing for the religious right is to have gays become mainstream and have them become a normal part of society, have them be next door neighbors with their boring, mundane lives, mowing the lawn. That's the most horrible thing in the whole world.
It's not horrible to get to that situation because we're there. The horrible thing is to recognize. See, right now, your next door neighbors are gay. They are. They're mowing their lawn. They're living together. They're gay.
That's right. Arguing over money.
And the ones on the other side, they're atheists.
Damn, you better move.
And no matter how hard, and the ones across the street are black, and there's Puerto Ricans on the way, and no matter how hard you try and deny it, that's the reality that you live in. This entire thing is about not wanting to recognize reality and not wanting to say, okay, I won't try to tell you how to live. Because they sense this obligation. God's got his thumb on their head saying, hey, go over there and tell them.
Yep.
Stop mowing your lawn in sandals.
So what I see is these folks who are for it, they're for religious persecution. They want to inflict their laws on somebody else or their ideas. This is all red meat for Christians. Persecute the gays. That's all well and good. Harming other people to gain power. That's what they're up to. They don't care very much about the Constitution and the U.S. government and how it's run. They don't care about an independent judiciary. They want a judiciary that's going to decide the way they are. They're happy to sabotage contracts. If Christians were really concerned about the destruction of society, they should be more interested in whether they're sabotaging contracts, whether their schools are funded and their kids are going to come out ignorant. They should care more about stopping corruption in the government. They should care more about the environment. These are all things that are real threats to our nation that they seem to overlook. They seem to not care about. So I tend to lump Christians together in one big bunch, which we've had a discussion about offline with some of our folks here. And I tend to do it because I think it's perfectly appropriate to judge a religion by the acts that it does, its impact on the world. Just as you can judge a man by his actions, you can judge a religion by its impact on the world. And I think the impact of Christianity is quite negative. And yes, there are various Christians who disagree with this amendment and who are very tolerant and who are generally very sensible. But you don't have much of a voice. These conservative Christians have you on their list. They're going to come after you, after the gays, after the atheists. You're next. You're third in the list. So watch out. If you all can't agree on what your Bible says, it's not a very good instruction manual, right? If half of you think it's one thing, half of you think it's another thing, then maybe it's not written very well. Maybe it's not very clear.
I think it'd be great if half of them agreed on anything.
Yeah.
There's 1,000 denominations of Christianity.
So anyway, and Thomas Paine in his Age of Reason in the 1700s made a very, very eloquent argument that God would never use a book to communicate to people. And that argument is rock solid and still stands today. Go read it. It's online. Age of Reason, Thomas Paine, not one of the founding fathers, but he was involved with that group. Was very influential.
He was a close friend of Benjamin Franklin, and he was actually the person who named the United States of America. The United States of America.
He did?
Yes.
All right.
That qualifies as founding father in my book.
So let's take another caller.
Sure. We've got Scott. How you doing?
Hey, how you doing? Hi. I just would like to, on that note, say that you take anything that's on this earth that, like a book, and tell me man that's touched it hasn't corrupted it. So on that note...
I have some great math textbooks and physics textbooks that are, I don't think have been corrected.
Maybe they haven't been, but the Bible's got 67 translations and 1,400 contradictions, and in King James it changed the word women deacons to women servants, and young male lover to young male servant. And
okay. Did you know that the King James Bible was tainted by the homosexual agenda?
Well, the King James was a homosexual. Now, the thing is that I am a homosexual, and I have worked for the Health and Human Services Commission which was Department of Human Services for 14 years, openly gay. I'm in a gospel group. I'm the only white dude in a black gospel group that tours the United States and all over the world singing. And it's a missionary Baptist, but we're from all over Austin, and all different churches, Catholic to Jews, actually.
Okay.
And I read my Bible constantly, and I look at the atheists, and I'd love to be able to, enlighten you guys on your misguided...
well, I was just scratching my head. I think that
thinking,
gay Christians are kind of
I read my verse every day, and I know that there are many sins in the Bible, and that to touch the skin of a pig is an abomination in the sight of God, and so those football players are in trouble. And
that's right. Can't eat that shellfish.
And that's right below men sleeping together, and that a woman who grabs her husband's rival's cock in the middle of a fight shall have her wrist cut off.
All sorts of wonderful stuff. Yeah.
The rival is under no blame from God. That's Deuteronomy. And they don't give sermons on that. They'll piss off a third of the church talking about, Adam and Steve, but he won't be talking about, cheating on his wife with his rosy palm. Now, that's for sure. And when it comes down to, there was Frontline last night. They did a sting on internet child pornography. And they busted, oh my God, they must have busted, about 100 guys. And they were all married. Most of them worked with children. They were either doctors or worked with child counseling. They were all straight. And I get into, these people I work with are all Republicans, and they're on a holy war. They're not just anti-gay. They're anti-Mexican border. They're anti-blacks. They want to kill all Muslims, male, female, children. They want to blow up the Dome of the Rock. They want to blow up that gold dome church because they have free will, and it's in line with God. And they talk about it at the break room, and they're anti-gay, and they argue with me about marriage. You want to be associated
with these guys?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you. I was a Christian for 20 some odd years, and it was a systematic process of studying not only specifically contradictions and problems within the Bible, forgeries within the Bible, things like that, but I went on and studied a number of other things. If you're able to recognize the problems here, what is it that keeps you a believer?
I really negate the brimstone and fire, and I totally stick with what rings true and what is promising and what is, things that keep my faith. God's never where when I want him, but he's always right on time, that kind of a thing. I really feel there is a creator that is connected to me and that I have a purpose in life. And, I really don't care if you're an atheist or a Buddhist or a Hindu. I follow Christ because I think he knew some things and said some things back then. It's like I write gospel songs, and one of them is like, when my Jesus died for me, he spoke the truth, and he stood his ground, up on higher ground. And there are things that are said in the Bible that just make you a better man, and some of the stuff that goes on in my office, we got guys gambling literally on dead men, on sports. They gamble by who's been maimed and who's been injured and who's out on season and which boxer's over the hill, and they not only gamble on the fact that he's a long shot, but on whether or not he's going to die in the ring and before the towel is thrown in and the doctor jumps in the ring.
So you've taken some interpretation of the Bible and it rings true with you, and you're happy, right?
Yeah. When the woman steps in and grabs her husband's rival by the cock and the rival chops her wrists off. Those are biblical, historical times.
Let me ask a question here real quick. If you have an interpretation of the Bible that you are happy with, what's wrong with somebody else having an interpretation of the same Bible and coming up with a different conclusion, which is entirely possible, right?
Oh my God, I get interpretations of the Bible all the time. Like there shouldn't be marriage because I'm a hockey player, and this guy came out the other day with a tennis racket, and he wanted to play hockey with us with a tennis racket. And, that's just not the way it works. And there was this two-headed frog.
Is that like mixing two different colors?
And I'm so glad that two-headed frog didn't have kids. And I said, well, the Siamese twins, they had 2 wives and 8 kids, and they grew and matured a hell of a lot better than the kids, your kid's father did.
Okay. So if everybody is interpreting the Bible their way, isn't that the same as moral anarchy or moral relativism? And
I mean, if you get to pick and choose which...
Well, the point is
hang on, let me ask
two men here on TV who are atheists, and you're intelligent, and you found your way the way you found it. I found my way the way I found it.
I understand, and I'm not saying that you're necessarily wrong.
And as a Christian, I would join your group in a red-hot second to hang out with you guys. And frankly, I think Jesus would too.
Okay.
And,
what an endorsement.
Is, when I go to heaven and I meet God, what I want God to say to me is, you are always my favorite. Don't tell Jesus. You know?
You're my kind of Christian.
My kind of atheist.
And on that note, since you're obviously atheist-friendly, any atheist or atheist...
I wasn't. But the point is you guys need to stay there, and you need to talk, because you can do it matter-of-factly with, just a point of truth. You don't get riled. You don't spew hate.
Well, sometimes I get riled.
I get riled all the time. Let me tell you.
Stay tuned, because I'm about to get riled. I got to let you go because we got to get to a couple announcements. Thanks a lot for calling.
The KKK were out there talking, and they said ignore them. There's two of you. You keep talking.
All right, thanks a lot.
We got a lot of time to make up for, apparently. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for calling. And as a reminder to any atheists or atheist-friendly people who want to join us for dinner after the show, we'll be at Fresh Choice, 9761 Great Hills Trail, near the Arboretum. It's all right there on your screen. And we normally get there between 6:30, 6:45. Feel free to come down and enjoy a meal and some conversation with us.
Before you, I gotta say
ahead.
just one thing for the caller, which is, yeah, we're here. We have our spiels and our things, and one of the big things that we have as atheists is we try to bring evidence, right? We try to look things up. We try to find facts. If somebody calls in and tells us we're wrong, one of the things we're going to look for is, what evidence do you have? Do you have any reason to believe that? Did you make it up, or somebody just tell you that? So we try to ground our opinions or whatever on evidence, and so that's what we're trying to do here today. And the point I was trying to make with the caller is if you're basing things based on the Bible, you can interpret it one way or another way, and it's all kind of a house of mirrors, and you can come up to any conclusion you want and still be right. So I just wanted to make that little point before we move off of that. So I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I gotta kind of do as Russell says and break the fourth wall for a second and ask the studio. I noticed that we've always only got the one line, and it seems to be lively. So I'm wondering if maybe we have a bad cable that's not letting us get all three lines. I got a news article that I get to real quick while we're waiting to find out who's
please
who's
call in
next.
And challenge us on the same-sex marriage thing. And in the meantime,
a Vatican cardinal said Thursday the faithful should listen to what secular modern science has to offer, warning that religion risks turning into fundamentalism if it ignores scientific reason. Cardinal Paul Pupar, who heads the Pontifical Council for Culture, made the comments at a news conference on a Vatican project to help end the mutual prejudice between religion and science that has long bedeviled the Roman Catholic Church and is part of the evolution debate in the U.S.
That all sounds pretty amazing, actually, doesn't it?
I mean, if they're going to try and reconcile and allow people to pay more attention to science, I'm all in favor of that.
And that's very much in the theme of what I just said.
Yeah,
right? Science is about taking evidence and weighing conclusions and trying to make sense of the world, right?
And they mentioned the fact that they treated Galileo horribly, which they apologized for 300 years later.
No, 400 years.
Almost, yeah. I think it was just shy of 400. But anyway, centuries later, they apologized for what they did. But lest we think that people are getting too reasonable, let's read what else he wrote. He also said that science, too, should listen to religion. Quote, "We know where scientific reason can end up by itself. The atomic bomb and the possibility of cloning human beings are fruit of a reason that wants to free itself from every ethical or religious link." No. Sorry. Science doesn't end up in bad places by itself. Science ends up at the truth. The only time things are bad, or you take a look at the atomic bomb, for instance, that's not science by itself. That's science as used by man to meet a need. You can do that for anything. Science needs to be completely divorced from religion in the sense that you cannot do good science if the possibility is always hanging over your head that your results are invalid because God is dipping his toe into the solution. Science has also been used by the church to do evil. You cannot do... This essentially comes down to an indictment of the concept of morality without God. we need scientists to listen to religion, because without religion, you guys are immoral and you're liable to do something really, really bad with science.
Not like religion has ever done anything bad.
That's a crock. Take a look at the Crusades. They use a lot of really cool scientific instruments to rip people's bowels out because they wouldn't, reject their personal religion. So while I'm encouraged that the Vatican is willing to try and allow more secular scientific reasoning to get encourage the faithful to adhere to that and listen to that, this concept that science needs religion is crap. It's 100% completely wrong.
Yeah, religion is part of the problem. It's not part of the solution.
Yeah, it represents a fundamental misunderstanding of science, the scientific method, and what's required. And because we keep hearing about all those illogical arguments against the scientific method, I think I'm just going to have to do a show on it.
Yeah.
I guess we're going to have to go through it, because as a quickie example, intelligent design folks try to prey on the honesty and intellectual integrity of scientists when they say that evolution is just a theory. Yeah, so is gravity. Okay, there's a scientific process to this, and what the intelligent design folks have done in particular is they've come up with new terms like macroevolution and microevolution, because there are some things that they just can't get around. The evidence is so strong. But I'm going to show you a little example. Let me get the paperclip.
Paperclip. Here's a paperclip.
I'm going to drop this paperclip. I'm going to drop this marker.
Okay.
And I'm going to drop this pen.
Okay.
Theory of gravity states that gravity pulled all those down. Intelligent design proponents are saying that this pin might have been pulled down by the hand of God instead of gravity. Especially since it landed point down, and it was it's a far more stylish and creative pin. It may have been affected differently. And that is the type of intellectual dishonesty that they're practicing when they call into question settled science. And that's exactly what we're talking about. We talk about evolution or anything, gravity, sexual reproduction. These are hypotheses which have been tested. They make predictions. The predictions prove true, and all the evidence continues to hold them up. Intelligent design does none of that. It's completely dishonest. It's religion in a lab coat, and that's it.
Yep. Yep.
Let's go on to Joe. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Pretty good.
I'm a religious person. I believe in God.
Okay.
But it's just like this gay marriage thing that's coming about. All the people that call into your show that are preachers or they believe in different churches like Baptist, Church of Christ, so on. My father used to own a barbershop, and he used to cut people's hair for free. All the preachers would come in and get their hair cut free. One day they were having a conversation, and my dad said, well, you know, the Sabbath day is on Saturday. It's the seventh day of the week.
That's right.
But all these people, they believe in the Bible so much, and they want everybody to go by the Bible. Why don't they go by the Bible?
That's right.
So that bothers me about people. Mm-hmm. And the only reason why I'm calling in is because I was listening to the caller before, and yes, there is some things in the Bible that are true, but most of these people, they don't live by the Bible, but they think they do. And, you know, people have a right to live any way they want to. And I kind of appreciate y'all's show, and that's why I called in.
Well, thanks a lot for calling.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Appreciate your call.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of funny to me. You know, there's a lot of people who claim that you can't, like, in some instance, the Vatican representative was doing this, that you can't have morality without God, and that this idea of utilizing subjective secular reasoning to make decisions about what's right and wrong is invalid. And yet, when you look at religious claims, there's a multitude of religious claims, sometimes even within the same religion, matter of fact, very often within the same religion, which contradict each other, which means that some of them are right. Well, no, it doesn't mean any of them are right. It means that at least some of them are wrong, and it's possible that all of them could be wrong.
That's right.
And what each individual has to do is exercise their own subjective reasoning. They're using the exact same tools that we're using. They just haven't gone far enough to say, you know what? I don't have any reliable evidence to tell me which of these, if any, are correct.
And you might as well jettison the baggage that's confusing the issue, right?
Yeah,
start from reason alone, right? And you do a better job in many cases.
In an email discussion I was having with somebody recently, I brought up 2 Kings 2. I think I don't know where the exact verse is. 23. 2 Kings 2:23, where the prophet Elisha is in the town of Bethel, and he's walking along the road. And according to the NIV, some youths came out of the town and jeered at him, "Go up, you bald head." They said, "Go up, you bald head." He turned around, looked at them, cursed them in the name of God, and then God sent 2 she-bears to rip apart 42 children. Okay.
Isn't that special?
There's some changes in the translation, depending on which version of the Bible you happen to be reading, as to whether or not these were children or youths. So? What difference does it make? The guy that I was having a discussion with in email writes back, well, that word could also be translated as youths or young men, and since 42 of them were actually mauled, and it doesn't say they were killed, they were mauled. They might have lived. It might have just been a harmful, playful pat from these bears. Because there were 42 of them, clearly Elisha was outnumbered and being violently threatened by a mob
of children.
Wow. This is a couple short verses that are a copy of a copy of a translation of a copy of a translation, and you've taken the traditional translation, which has stood for thousands of years, and converted it into a mob violently threatening Elisha. Now, I'll go ahead and grant you all of that. Let's say all of that is completely true, and Elisha's life was in danger. Doesn't the New Testament tell us to love our enemies and not to curse them? Doesn't it say to turn the other cheek? And wouldn't it have been a far greater demonstration of a benevolent, loving God, instead of sending bears to maul them, to just simply make Elisha completely immune to any rocks they might throw? That's a very profound demonstration of power, which would have convinced anybody standing there that this is a man of God who's completely protected. You don't have to be a nasty, vicious monster unless you're in the Old Testament.
Well, a lot of the Old Testament's based on how showing how powerful God is. And then they figured out, well, that doesn't sell too well. Maybe we need some kinder, gentler God. So that's why they came up with the New Testament. Put a sugar coating on it.
Yeah, of course, the problem is that in the Old Testament there is no concept of, or no firm concept of an afterlife or hell or eternal punishment. It was all, you got your punishment right here and you lived your life. And then the New Testament made things softer and easier in some areas of daily life, but introduced this concept of eternal torture. Now,
isn't that nice?
Going back to 2 Kings real quick, all these people really did, even if they were threatening, was verbal. My view of morality and ethics is that no matter what anybody says, a physical retaliation isn't automatically warranted. Is there anything you could say to somebody that is so bad that it's, granted we have fighting words as defined by the Supreme Court where, somebody calls you a name that's that bad, you get to punch them and you get off the hook. Is there any finite crime that warrants infinite punishment and torture?
None whatsoever.
I can't. It's beyond me.
It riles my sense of morality. That's
even
for
if I spent my entire life murdering and slaughtering and raping, at a minimum, the punishment would be, something less than infinite. And yet, this is the doctrine that you get in the New Testament, the love one another New Testament. So while the Old Testament God was this egotistical monster who directed David and others to run around killing and instructed them, kill everybody in this village, kill all their cattle, destroy all their belongings, but keep the young girls for yourself and make sure you deliver some of those girls to the temple because they belong to the priest. Come on. Why is it that God in the Bible is never any wiser than the barbarians that created him? Oops, did I say that? It's absurd.
We created God in our image.
Yeah.
Right? So I have another little thing I'd like to share before we go off the air here.
Sure.
Let's pretend that the religious right has sort of got their way. They've established a Christian nation, and they've got everybody believing, that the founders are Christian and all this other nonsense.
Okay, but now I'm living in Spain and speaking Spanish.
Right. You're living in Spain by then, right? Right. So this is kind of a fantasy / horror thing that I'm doing here, right? So what might happen if this happens? Well, what's the most important goal in Christianity? Well, that would have to be bringing back Jesus, right? That is the whole purpose, right? His second coming. That's got to be the whole purpose. And if you have a Christian nation, that's got to be the nation's purpose. Well, how do we go about doing that? Well, the Bible says that time has been shortened. Time has been shortened so that from now on, both of those who have wives should be as though they had none. So this is from Paul in, I forget where it is in the Bible, but we can look it up. The idea that Jesus is going to come back so soon that you should stop having children, right? So this is what the Bible says, and other places Paul says, well, marriage is only for procreation, so there's no real reason to get married. You should love God instead, and all this stuff about purity in the Bible. So pretty clearly, Jesus isn't coming back because those Christians are procreating. So we have to stop that. That has to be our national purpose, and it's all based on the Bible, so it must be true. And thanks to the efforts of Rick Santorum, we have no privacy rights. So those are not an enumerated right in the Constitution. So that's not important. So by God, we better force sterilize people. So everybody, all the males should get in line and get snipped, and they can sing hymns while they're in line, and knowing that our nation is doing the right thing. So, and of course, you'd execute those people who are not participating because they're enemies of the state. Anybody who thinks Christianity is about love is not got the wrong idea, and they'll just have to be tortured. Anyway, so that's the end of my little fantasy. That's if that sounds crazy to you, well, that's how your religion sounds to us. And it's using the exact same silliness that you guys are using to persecute gays. So
there's a logical fallacy somewhere.
There's a logical fallacy somewhere in there. Can you find it? One or two?
We got about 8 minutes left, and I don't know. There may be some issue with the phones because I don't actually have anybody up for line one, and it's the only one that's been working. I don't know. You've completely thrown me off, and I have a joke here in front of me, which I was going to do, and now I'm not. So
okay,
but I guess I could. So now we got a name up. We'll go ahead and go to Dave.
Hey guys,
how you doing?
Great, thank you. Listen, Don, I'm thrilled to see you finally going on the offensive here. These guys have basically declared war on us, and it's time for us to fight back.
Okay.
I mean, this is not a philosophical argument anymore. They've basically declared war on us, and it's nice to see. Maybe we could. So I don't think I have just what it takes to do this. First of all, time. But somebody out there, you guys seem more research oriented than I do. Maybe let's just write a book disproving Christianity, not disagreeing with it, but disproving it.
Well, see, the problem is that you may not actually be able to do that. What you can do is provide a mountain of evidence showing why belief is unreasonable or unwarranted, and there are already hundreds, if not thousands, of books out there that do that, plus articles and everything else. It's going to be almost impossible to completely disprove it. How do you go about proving that there is no God if God doesn't want you to know whether He's here or not?
I mean, I understand. I mean, plus you get the fanatic factor too. Like no matter what you say, they're going to.
But there are great books out there that go through and systematically deconstruct not just Christianity but other religions as well. And I'd recommend folks, just for entertainment, start by stopping by like Skeptic's Annotated Bible, where they go through verse by verse of both the Old and New Testament and the Quran to point out
contradictions,
absurdities, profanities, where they're talking about sexually oriented stuff or sexually related stuff that there's stuff in the Bible that if I read it right now, despite the fact that this is public access television, I'd probably be fined maybe boot it off the air, and I could open up the Bible right now and read that passage and get my ass in a whole bunch of trouble. And we all know the stuff you can get away with on public access.
Right. Well, I guess I'm just kind of jazzed up about the idea of the offensive here. I mean, it just seems like it's time to, pull together and do something in a united way, instead of doing this as a kind of a, philosophical discussion. And you guys, this show's great, don't get me wrong, but I do get a feeling that it's kind of academically insulated once in a while instead of politically active,
Well, since we're a nonprofit group, we can't be doing partisan politics, and since we're on a public access TV, we can't be doing calls to action. So our hands are tied in a couple places. We could do a little bit more. I agree. Okay,
well, that's all I had. Maybe next time you're at a meeting and your board, just think, hey, let's put out a line of, like, chick tracts or something of our own, that kind of thing.
We actually are doing more publications these days and more writing and such. So
I want to do a dramatic reading of Kissing Hank's Ass one day on the show.
Okay, that'd be
all
fun.
right, thanks a lot, guys.
All right, take care. Thank you for
Thanks
calling.
a lot.
Okay, our lines are open. We got time for another caller if someone wants to call in.
A little over 4.5 minutes.
So I don't know. I guess we didn't have. We normally have 3 lines that work, and I guess only one of them's working. So you might have gotten a busy signal. Have you tried to call?
Yeah, if you had problems getting through, we apologize.
So we didn't take as many callers as we would have normally.
Try and work that out by next week. As a reminder, though, all atheist and atheist-friendly people more than welcome to join us at Fresh Choice on Great Hills Trail near the Arboretum. We'll be there somewhere between 6:30 and 6:45. If you didn't get on the air and you have something that you wanted to talk about, you can email tv@atheist-community.org, and the entire cast and crew of the TV show gets those emails. And I've actually been having a really good conversation for the last few days or so with a gentleman who wrote in from that email address who had some misperceptions about atheism and whether or not we're all about asserting that there absolutely is no God, which just is not the position at all. While there are some atheists who I think would do that, you have to remember that a lot of people are atheists for a lot of different reasons, and some people, very much like not every Christian who claims to be a Christian necessarily meshes with typical Christianity. Not every person who decides to call themselves an atheist came to that conclusion through rational, reasonable means. There are people who did. We're often accused of, well, you don't really disbelieve, you're just mad at God. And the problem with that is that there are people who did get mad and frustrated at God and the church and everything else, and as kind of now I'm an atheist. And okay, to each their own, but that's not representative.
If you're reacting to a God, then you're not an atheist.
Yeah, it's not what we're about, and it's not what we're mostly dealing with. As a matter of fact, most of us would probably identify ourselves as agnostic atheists because, in a sense, those two words aren't mutually exclusive.
Right,
and that's not referring to Huxleyan agnostics who. Believe that
that's pretty academic.
There is no way to prove. But,
yeah. Another good reason before you take that call, another good reason to write us at tv@atheistexperience.org is if you'd like more information about the sources that we talk about in our show. Ask us for evidence. I'd be happy to provide people with any of the material that I've used to construct this show. And if you want to debate us or chat us up and find out more information, you're welcome to do that.
So we've got 2 minutes. Here's probably our last caller, Joe. How you doing?
Pretty good. I called in just a while ago, and I was talking about the Sabbath day being on Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the reason why I was calling, I'm sorry I didn't get my point across because I'm not used to talking to people on TV.
It is hard. Go ahead.
The Roman Catholic Church is the one that changed the Sabbath day. It wasn't God. Okay?
Yep.
And that's what kind of gets me whenever people want to change laws or they want to do anything, they always depend on the church and everything backing them up.
Well, I understand the Jews celebrated on Friday. So, right. And actually, if I trust anybody to get it right, I trust them because they sort of have the longest tradition, right? But,
I thought theirs was Saturday.
That's true, but what I'm just trying to say
Tuesday,
is
Saturday, Friday.
Okay, well,
Anyway,
I was wrong.
go ahead.
what I'm trying to say is this gay marriage thing. I'm not gay, but I know gay people, and there's nothing wrong with gay people. They have a right to live in this country the way that we have a right to live in this country, and if they want to be married and get the benefits of being married, they
the
should
rights and
get it.
responsibilities, right?
Yeah, and I don't think a church has a right to say anything about it when most of these churches, like the Baptist, and again, I'm not picking on the Baptist, but I'm just saying most of the people going to church on Sunday, a priest one time told us, he says, well, I figure everybody's Catholic because we're the ones who changed the Sabbath day. Okay. Well,
Hey, we got like 30 seconds left. Thanks a lot for calling, Joe. I got to let you go.
Thanks for calling.
Yeah, it's you can pick on Baptists all you want. I was raised a Baptist, so I have fun doing it. Feel free to join us for dinner. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll be back on next week.
Come and meet our crew. We have a great crew. Thank you guys for making this possible. And thank you for our callers. I guess we'll just go off the air.
That's what we do every week.
We do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Normally I go